something significant may be developing around the New England Patriots, and it revolves around a potential move that could reshape the team's receiving core as free agency approaches. According to reports, the Patriots are expected to be in strong pursuit of Indianapolis Colts wide receiver Alec Pierce if he officially reaches the open market. And the situation surrounding this possibility is becoming one of the most intriguing storylines for the Patriots heading into the next phase of roster building. The reason this suddenly became such a realistic possibility starts with a major decision the Patriots made earlier. The team released veteran wide receiver Stefon Diggs, a former All-Pro, in order to create salary cap flexibility and open up a starting wide receiver spot. That move immediately signaled that the Patriots could be preparing to make a splash at the position. And now the speculation is pointing toward Pierce as one of the potential targets the team may aggressively pursue when free agency begins. And when you start looking closely at Pierce's situation with the Colts, you begin to understand why so many teams are expected to show interest in him. The 25-year-old receiver is approaching the open market and, by all indications, plans to test it fully. That means he's expected to listen to offers not only from Indianapolis, but from teams across the league. The Colts still technically have time to work out a deal, but at this stage, it seems increasingly unlikely that Pierce signs an extension before free agency unless the team dramatically increases its offer. Part of what makes this situation complicated is a decision the Colts already made. Instead of placing the franchise tag on Pierce, Indianapolis chose to place the transition tag on quarterback Daniel Jones. That decision left Pierce without the same level of protection from outside offers. Essentially, it opened the door for other teams to compete directly for him without the same deterrence that the franchise tag would have created. From the Patriots' perspective, this opens up an interesting opportunity. If Pierce reaches the market, New England could try to position itself as an attractive landing spot, especially with a young quarterback like Maye leading the offense. For a wide receiver entering his prime, the idea of catching passes from an ascending young quarterback could be appealing, particularly if the financial offers from different teams end up being similar. And when you look at Pierce as a player, it's easy to see why he would generate this level of attention around the league. Over the past 2 seasons, he led the NFL in highest average yards per reception, which highlights exactly what kind of threat he is on the field. Pierce is known for elite vertical separation, meaning he consistently creates space down the field. On top of that, he has a unique ability to high-point the football, using his athleticism and body control to win contested catches even while playing through physical contact. Those traits make him one of the more dangerous deep threats available. Receivers with that type of vertical ability can completely change the dynamic of an offense because defenses are forced to account for the deep ball on every snap. For a Patriots offense that could be looking to expand its explosive play potential, that kind of skill set would be extremely valuable. Meanwhile, the situation in Indianapolis is becoming increasingly tense for Colts fans. Pierce is coming off a breakout season and appears to be entering the best years of his career after going through the typical development curve many wide receivers experience early in the NFL. Many receivers don't fully hit their stride until their 3rd or 4th season, and Pierce now seems to be reaching that point. Looking back, some observers believe the Colts could have avoided this entire situation by extending Pierce earlier. There was even a moment where that might have made sense strategically, especially after the team traded A.D. Mitchell in a package that brought All-Pro cornerback Sauce Gardner from the New York Jets before the trade deadline. That move could have cleared the path for Pierce to become even more central to the offense long term. Instead, the Colts now find themselves facing the very real possibility that one of their most explosive offensive weapons could leave just as he's entering his athletic prime. And if that happens, one of the teams potentially waiting on the other side is the New England Patriots, a franchise that has long been considered one of Indianapolis' historic rivals. For Colts fans, the idea of Pierce ending up in New England would be particularly painful considering the long history between the two teams. Losing a rising playmaker is already difficult, but seeing him land with a former arch-nemesis could make the situation even harder to accept. From the Patriots' perspective, though, this could be a strategic opportunity to add a young, explosive receiver who still has his best football ahead of him. The release of Stefon Diggs created both financial room and a clear vacancy at the position, and the timing of Pierce potentially hitting the market could line up perfectly with what New England is trying to build offensively. Now the big question becomes whether the Patriots will truly make a strong push once free agency begins, and whether Pierce himself would see New England as the right place for the next chapter of his career. So let me ask you this. If the Patriots really do pursue Alec Pierce in free agency, do you think he would be the right receiver to help take this offense to the next level? When you continue looking at the situation from the Patriots' perspective, the potential pursuit of Alec Pierce starts to make even more sense when you consider the broader direction of the offense and what the team might be trying to build moving forward. Pierce isn't just another receiver who might become available. What makes him particularly intriguing is the specific type of weapon he represents. Over the past 2 seasons, he led the entire league in highest average yards per reception, which immediately tells you something important about his role and his impact on the field. This is a receiver who stretches defenses vertically and forces defensive coordinators to respect the deep ball on nearly every snap. That type of presence can dramatically change the spacing of an offense. When defenses know a receiver can beat them deep at any moment, safeties are forced to play deeper, corners have to be more cautious, and suddenly the entire field opens up underneath. For a young quarterback like Maye, that kind of vertical threat can make a huge difference because it creates easier throwing windows and forces defenses into more conservative coverage looks, and that's where this possible connection becomes fascinating. If Pierce were to join the Patriots, he wouldn't just be another name added to the depth chart. He would immediately bring a very specific dimension to the offense, the ability to stretch the field with elite vertical separation, and the ability to win contested balls downfield. One of Pierce's defining traits is his ability to high-point the football. That's something that doesn't always show up in basic statistics, but it's incredibly valuable in real-game situations. When a quarterback puts the ball up in a contested situation, receivers with strong body control and timing can turn those plays into explosive gains. Pierce has consistently shown that ability, using his athleticism and balance to make acrobatic catches even while dealing with physical contact from defenders. That combination of size, athleticism, and downfield tracking is what makes his skill set somewhat unique. Not every receiver in the league can consistently create vertical separation and still have the body control to finish those plays once the ball arrives. It's also important to remember that Pierce is still just 25 years old. In NFL terms, that means he's entering what many consider the prime years for a wide receiver. The early part of his career involved development and adjustments, which is normal for many players at that position. Wide receivers often take a few seasons to fully adapt to the speed and complexity of the NFL game. Now that Pierce has had that breakout season, the expectation is that his best football could still be ahead of him. That's one of the reasons why so many teams are expected to show interest if he officially hits free agency. Young receivers with proven deep play ability don't become available very often. Meanwhile, the Colts are in a difficult position. The decision to place the transition tag on quarterback Daniel Jones instead of using the franchise tag on Pierce has left the door open for this entire scenario. Jones is currently rehabbing from a torn Achilles that he suffered late in the season, which adds another layer of uncertainty to Indianapolis' quarterback situation. Because Pierce was left untagged, other teams now have the freedom to pursue him without the same level of restriction. That's why the coming days could be critical for Indianapolis if they want to keep him. Once a player like Pierce reaches the open market and begins hearing offers from multiple teams, the negotiating dynamics can change very quickly. For the Patriots, the timing could work in their favor. The team already created cap space by releasing Stefon Diggs, and that move also left a starting receiver role open. If the front office believes Pierce is the type of player who fits their long-term offensive vision, free agency could be the moment they decide to make a serious push. And from Pierce's point of view, there are several factors that could influence his decision. Financial terms will obviously matter, but so will opportunity and quarterback play. A young receiver entering his prime might naturally be attracted to the idea of building chemistry with an emerging quarterback like Maye, especially if that quarterback is expected to lead the offense for years to come. Of course, nothing is guaranteed at this stage. Free agency is always unpredictable, and multiple teams could step forward with strong offers. The Colts themselves could still find a way to reach an agreement if they decide they cannot afford to lose one of their most explosive playmakers. But the possibility alone has already created a lot of conversation among fans. The idea that the Patriots could potentially add a vertical threat who has already proven he can produce explosive plays is something that would certainly change how people view the team's offensive potential going into the next season. And if it actually happens, it would also create one of the more ironic twists in recent NFL storylines, a former Colts playmaker possibly joining the Patriots, a team that Indianapolis fans have historically viewed as one of their biggest rivals. Now, everything comes down to what happens once the market opens and whether New England truly follows through on what reports are suggesting could be a strong pursuit. Another layer that makes this situation even more interesting for the Patriots is how the entire wide receiver market could shift depending on what happens with Alec Pierce once free agency officially begins. When a player with his specific skill set becomes available, teams that are looking for explosive playmakers often start adjusting their plans very quickly. And that's exactly why the Patriots' reported interest is generating so much attention. New England is not just looking to add another receiver, the team appears to be searching for someone who can bring a different dimension to the offense. The release of Stefon Diggs didn't just free up salary cap space, it also created a clear opportunity for a new starting receiver to step into a meaningful role right away. That's the kind of opportunity that can attract players during free agency. Receivers want targets, they want opportunities to make plays, and they want to be part of an offense where their strengths are fully utilized. When you combine that with the presence of a young quarterback like Maye, the Patriots suddenly become a much more intriguing destination for a wideout entering his prime. Pierce's playing style fits a very specific role that many offenses value, but few players execute consistently. His ability to create vertical separation forces defenses to stretch the field. When he gets behind defenders, it's not just about speed, it's about timing, tracking the ball in the air, and winning at the catch point. Those traits are what allowed him to lead the league in highest average yards per reception over the past 2 seasons. That statistic alone tells you how dangerous he can be when the ball is thrown downfield. Every catch has the potential to become a big play, and explosive plays are often what separate good offenses from great ones in the NFL. For the Patriots, adding a receiver who specializes in those types of plays could change how opposing defenses approach the game. Defenses would have to respect the deep threat, which naturally creates more space for the rest of the offense to operate. Running lanes can open up, intermediate routes become easier to complete, and suddenly the entire offensive structure becomes more balanced. But the Colts still remain part of this story, and their decision-making in the coming days could determine whether Pierce actually reaches the open market. Indianapolis still has time to reach an agreement with him, and if the organization truly believes he's a key piece of their offensive future, they may decide to push harder to keep him before other teams can get involved. The challenge for the Colts is that Pierce's value has likely increased after his breakout season. Players who produce explosive plays at a high rate tend to attract attention from across the league, and once multiple teams begin evaluating the same player, the market can move quickly. From the Colts' perspective, the situation may already feel uncomfortable. Losing one of their most explosive offensive weapons would be difficult under any circumstance. But the possibility that he could end up with the Patriots, a franchise that has long been considered one of Indianapolis' biggest rivals, would make the situation even tougher for their fan base. For Patriots fans, though, the discussion is focused on what Pierce could potentially bring to the offense. At 25 years old, with elite deep ball ability and proven production in terms of yards per reception, he represents the type of player who could still be ascending. That's often the ideal moment for a team to invest in a player right as he enters his prime. It's also worth remembering that wide receivers sometimes experience their biggest leaps in performance after their early development years. Pierce has already gone through that adjustment period in the NFL, and now that he's coming off a breakout season, many believe his best performances could still be ahead of him. So, as free agency approaches, the Patriots appear to be positioning themselves to potentially make a move if the opportunity becomes real. The release of Stefon Diggs created the flexibility to explore options like this, and the reported interest in Pierce suggests the front office may already be evaluating how he would fit into the team's offensive plans. Now, everything comes down to timing, negotiations, and whether Pierce ultimately decides to explore offers across the league. And that's why this storyline is becoming one of the most fascinating ones for Patriots fans to watch right now. Because if the Patriots truly do make a strong push